What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Monday, March 14th. If you were watching live on YouTube with us, this is the first of...
Well, if you're watching live on YouTube, you notice that Brinson just kicked himself off the podcast and that you're left with us, the matching brothers who look like we're in a cult because we're wearing the same coat.
We're in the Mr. Trubisky cult. I was going to tweet out that they were doing the show live, Breech. I was going to say it's Trubisky time of the podcast. I look up, Brinson disappeared. He must have been angry about the Mr. Trubisky news, but we're going to talk all free agency news. Maybe Brinson's quit. Maybe his contract's up. We don't know. But yeah, so it's great. I don't know what the reads are, so when Brinson comes back, he can do all the reads and stuff. Thank you for joining us live. What was your favorite free agency move in the tampering period, which isn't officially free agency as we sit here Monday at 4:03 p.m. Eastern time?
Unbelievable.
Oh, look who's back, Brinson.
Yeah.
You know what was nice
of you? Huh?
Well, we were just talking about how me and Wilson match, and so it was nice of you to leave. We thought you were going to go change so that you would also match. Clearly, you did not.
No, I did not. Yeah. So anyway, Monday, March 14th, if you are watching on YouTube, live on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6.
By the way, if it makes you feel any better, Brinson, we just acted like you weren't even here and we just kept going.
Yeah, that's fine. Smash the like button if you're listening, if you're watching on YouTube, whether you're live or watching it later. Give us your best or worst free agent deal in the comments as well. And make sure and hit the alert button so that way. Am I repeating something you guys said already? Probably.
No, you only
no. You do all the grunt work. We don't.
The administrative work. We were going to talk about the fun stuff.
We didn't touch that stuff.
Smash the like button. Turn on alerts because when like Deshaun Watson's probably getting traded this week. Sure seems like it. And when that happens, we will go live. If other big stuff happens, of course, we'll go live as well. If it's like a bunch of medium stuff, which is kind of what we got today, we'll save it for the recap at 4 p.m. every day. Also, leave a 5-star review with a question on Apple for a future mailbag. We'll answer any and all 5-star questions. And make sure to join us in the bracket challenge game on CBSSports.com's Pick'em bracket special. I'll be in there. Wilson will be there. Breech will be there. And we want you guys with us as well. Join at CBSSports.com/pick6brackets. And the winner will get a $100 gift card to Paramount Plus. You're able to watch NCAA tournament games on P+, tons of soccer from the Champions League to CONCACAF, golf majors in the spring, and NFL football in the fall. Also, we're excited about the debut of Halo, which is streaming March 24th exclusively on Paramount Plus. Head to Paramount+/Halo to try it. ParamountPlus.com/Halo to try it for free. Back to the brackets. Who just wants one pool? You can also create a group to compete against friends and fill out your bracket for the chance to win a trip to the 2023 Final Four. You can play on the CBS Sports app or at CBSSports.com/Pick6brackets. Link will be in the episode description.
So I got a question then.
Sure.
So when I win this pool, which I already feel bad because we're getting all these other people in it, but if I win, do I get the gift card or does second place get it, or do I get to pick who gets it? What's the fine print there, Brinson? Why don't you find that out and maybe we'll learn it. I can tell everybody tomorrow what happens when I win this pool.
I'm not in legal, so you'll have to ask.
I'm glad Breech interrupted.
Email the legal department.
Yeah. Hey, when I win the bracket, they're like, look, dude, why don't you let's figure it out. Let's see.
You get P+ free, and why are you wasting our time?
When Wright State wins the title, and I'm the only one who has it
right now.
Boy, that would be something. So free agency, first day of the legal tampering period, and we saw it. We saw a lot of the big names come off the board.
You just called it meh.
What's that?
You just called it an average first day, if I recall correctly.
I didn't think it was like a lot of times last week was so crazy that I think that this week felt sort of like
I'll give it a B.
Well, to put Brinson's meh in perspective, though, we had last year, I believe, 2 of the top 10 free agents signed within the first 30 minutes of tampering.
Who was that again?
What?
Refresh my memory. Who were those guys?
I can't remember.
Oh, I thought you actually knew.
No, I had the research this morning because I was seeing how crazy things could get.
Too busy emailing legal about your Paramount Plus setup to look that up. Okay.
Well, anyway, so and this year, so last year 2 of the top 5. This year we had 2 of the top 10, so similar but probably not as big. And this is based off Prisco's ranking. So the 2 this year were Brandon Scherf and Devondre Campbell, who actually just signed that deal within 20 minutes of us coming on.
I think Kristen Kirk was 12, he said, too. So he also snuck in as a top 15 if you want to expand it a little bit. I thought it was. I think for certain teams, it was. I don't want to say game changers because every time you win the offseason, you end up winning 1 or 2 football games. But I thought the Jaguars did a good job to start.
Well, let's dive into it. Let's talk about some winners and losers, and we can begin with the Jaguars because I think they made the most noise, and you have them as a winner, Wilson.
Yeah, specifically Trevor Lawrence because they franchised Cam Robinson, which you're like, yeah, okay, $16.6 million and change, something like that. Then they signed Brandon Scherff. That feels really good if you're Trevor Lawrence, who I think was threw 17 interceptions last year, which I think was tied for the season high with some guy named Matthew Stafford. Then they signed Christian Kirk to a 3-year, $85 billion deal. I think it ended up being about $72 million officially, but that's a lot of money for a number 2 who is now presumably number 1. They have Laviska Shenault. They do have some other pieces there. They need a tight end, as Pete Prisco would not quit tweeting about over the course of Monday. I mean, he's like, they should sign Tyler Conklin. Do it now. Do it now. So
that's what they need is Tyler Conklin.
But I do love the and they got another who's the other offensive lineman, because the list I'm looking at isn't updated. They got another offensive lineman too, I think, right? In addition to Brandon Scherff, or was it just Brandon Scherff? I know they signed a couple of defensive guys, which is also great. But in terms of helping that offense, I think I love the idea of signing Brandon Scherff, even if that's what all they end up doing. I'm trying to find my updated list. That's if you want to make $1 million, do an updated as it happens in real time.
I don't think they signed another lineman.
Okay, good.
So they tagged Robinson and they signed Scherff, which gives them, a pretty, robust offensive line to work with in the first, like their whole. And I saw some criticism about it too, where it's like, they let Norwell and then another tackle go. Or no, they let Norwell and Joe Schubert, the linebacker, go, and then they go out and like sign a guard and another linebacker. It's like, what are we really doing? The one that gives me the most pause, and I think gives everybody the most pause, it certainly raised the biggest eyebrows, was the Christian Kirk contract.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to give someone who's never had a 1,000-yard season. I think it was 4 years, $72 million, and that can go up to $84 million a year. So we're talking about $21 million per year if Christian Kirk maxes that out, which would be the third highest, making the third highest paid receiver. If you're Devonte Adams, the Packers hate the Jaguars and Christian Kirk right now because Devonte Adams is definitely going to throw that contract down and be like, all right, well, if this guy's getting 21 mil, you guys might have to give me a blank check.
Hey, who was the wide receiver we were talking about last week that was going to be looking to make close to 20 million? It was someone that was probably, I can't remember. We've talked about so many people, but if he had gotten this Christian Kirk deal, we'd have been like, oh my God, this is insanely overpaying this person. So they have Marvin Jones, who's probably on the downside of his career, although a really solid player. Laviska Shenault, who I mentioned, I'm trying to see. Oh yeah. So the free agents, DJ Shark, who was sort of never really materialized. Devon Austin, who they traded for. Laquan Treadwell, who didn't work out in Minnesota before he came over and didn't really add much. So they still, they need help at wide receiver, but I think something that's important to keep in mind as we go through this, and we sort of know it, but you can get caught up in the moment, and I get it. The Honest NFL on Twitter, he's a former scout. He doesn't say who he is, but he tweets out some stuff that's interesting from time to time, and he tweeted this out right as the Christian Kirk news was breaking, and after the Jaguars, went on a drunken spending spree this afternoon. Draft and develop your premium positions. Otherwise, you'll find yourself overpaying in free agency to compensate. So I think it's important. Like you draft the offensive linemen, you draft the wide receivers, you draft the D-backs, and obviously quarterback. That's just a crapshoot. But the offensive linemen, wide receivers, and defensive backs feels like even edge rushers. If you can draft those guys and develop them and have them for 3 or 4 years, you can save yourself the $22 million and change for Christian Kirk's of the world. If it works out, great. But history suggests that if he was a number 2 in Arizona, is he suddenly going to become a number 1 on a much worse team?
Well, so here's the thing. I agree with that point completely. Free agency should supplement your roster building. Like you should be using free agency to complement the roster that you've developed through drafting and through trades and all of that. Free agency should not be a way to fix your roster, because if you go into free agency needing to fix your roster, then you're going to end up with a situation where you're overpaying for these guys. And Christian Kirk, to be clear, is not getting $21 million per year. He's actually getting $18 million per year. Not that that's that much better. He can make
repeat that just so you hear it coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, he's getting $18 million a year. But the logic here is that the Jaguars are trying to make it look like they're doing the best for Trevor Lawrence. And I think they are. Christian Kirk slots in now at below Chris Godwin. Tyreek Hill will leapfrog him when he gets his new deal. But I mean, he's making as much as Kenny. He's making basically the same as Kenny Galladay. Which,
where does he rank among the wide receivers now?
I think he's third behind.
No. He's third if it's at 21.
Yeah, if it's 84. Yeah.
And it's 18. What is it?
If he maxes out his deal.
Yeah. But now this is what I would argue is if he ends up making the $84 million at $21 million per, then he'll probably end up being worth the $21 million because he will have hit these incentives that are so large and his team will have produced so well that they that they would actually like put together he'll put together the numbers that will make it worth.
No one disagrees with that. I mean, if you earned your $21 million, yeah, great, you earned it. But I think that's the question. What have we seen in the past?
Well, and that's the other exactly. And I think that is the question. Like, I would love to know if Jacksonville offered DJ Chark any of this money. If they said, here's a 4-year, 54 or whatever it is, here's $18 million per year. Do you want it? Because if push comes to shove and my options are Christian Kirk or DJ Chark, I'm probably taking DJ Chark, right?
At the same price, I feel like it. Yeah.
So
DJ Chark has been explosive on terrible football teams. Christian Kirk has been very good on above average football teams.
Right, when he's not the focal point of the opposing defense. So
like he's played with Larry Fitzgerald and Dre Hopkins. I mean,
right. So what's going to exactly? So yeah, this was just an interesting side, and maybe DJ Chark doesn't want to be in Jacksonville. So
I could say that.
And
to be clear, I don't hate it. It just seems like it's not the wisest use of a lot of money. It's not like they didn't have the money to spend, and I understand what they're trying to do.
They are trying to win more. They're trying to actually be competitive and win football games and give Trevor Lawrence a chance in 2022. And in order to do that, because they probably can't pull it off in the draft, they're trying to pay for it and then to also add a pass rusher potentially at number 1. I actually think Aiden Hutchinson is a big winner now because there's a good chance that he goes number 1 overall with that Brandon Scherf signing. It seems to be the sort of the consensus that is developing with the, around the NFL. By the way, the other thing on Christian Kirk is 4 years in Arizona. He's only 25 years old, doesn't turn 26 until November. So you're buying early on him at least. But I mean, his best season was last year when he had 77 catches for 982 yards, including a 75% catch percentage, which is I guess okay, maybe not like elite. And that you got to factor in too. That is with Kirk playing after DeAndre Hopkins went down for a large portion of the season. So like Kirk should have in theory been putting up massive numbers, number 1 numbers. I guess Kyler Murray was out too, but really, he only had 1 game over 100 yards. So you know what that's called? That's called Jacksonville.
It's called overpaying.
And Jacksonville's done this a lot over the last decade. And so I guess, if you get, let's say you get Aiden Hutchinson and another offensive lineman at the top of the second round, and you added Christian Kirk and you added Brandon Scherf and you bring back Cam Robinson, you can talk yourself into, okay, the Jaguars are putting enough around Trevor Lawrence where with Doug Peterson's coaching, he'll be able to take a step forward in year 2. And I think that's a good thing. But we're also kind of expecting like Brandon Scherf playing 16 games or 17 games would be kind of a surprise given his injury history. And Christian Kirk having a monster, true alpha wide receiver season, given his production, would be extremely surprising. So you're sort of just buying the top of a bad market. And as we point out, like it never works out.
Was this Prisco's number 1 wide receiver? Do we know? I haven't followed the free agency openings that closely. Either way, let me ask you this. I did say he had him 12.
It was not Prisco's number 1 wide receiver. His number 1 was Allen Robinson.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let me ask you this. So as I look at the rankings, so it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So Kristen Kirk ranks 9th average annual value at $18 million a year. And I'll ask you 3 names in the area, in the range of what Christian Kirk's now making. Some of these guys may get new deals. One definitely will. And you tell me, who would you rather have?
Yeah, okay. And I was just going to say, like, I think when you start to read off these names too, that Christian Kirk at $21 million per year is kind of outrageous. Christian Kirk at $18 million a year is kind of like sort of seems to fit more acceptably with where.
All right, let's go. Let's do it. Chris Godwin.
I'm taking Christian Kirk to start the season, but yes, Godwin's a much better receiver.
The moment he's healthy, fair enough. Kenny Galladay, who shot himself in both feet in that first year in New York.
I mean, I think I'm probably taking Christian Kirk over. I really like Kenny Galladay.
I did. I think.
Yeah, but man, that was his performance last year in New York, just very
Breech. Galladay.
Okay, I get it. I'm not going to mention Tyreek because he's about to get paid a lot more.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson, who we just mentioned.
So he's coming off that franchise tag.
Real quick with Galladay. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has multiple 1,000-yard seasons, and
then bad teams too.
But he's playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, he's not playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback in last season, and he still put up over 500 yards.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
Please do not sell last year's Kenny Galladay performance.
I think you're better selling.
I'm not selling it. I'm just saying that I'm taking him. Fine.
I get it. I don't hate it.
Did you talk me into Christian Kirk? Is that what you wanted to do here?
I think it's probably a wash. I think that's like a fair.
I'll take a wash. I think it is. I agree.
It's a slam dunk Kenny Galladay if he sat out last year.
That's right. Who else is on that?
Allen Robinson. What did we decide?
I think Allen Robinson will slot right into that.
I might take Christian Kirk. He feels more explosive to me.
I think he's getting $20 million a year.
Yeah,
he can get $20 million a year. I'm fine paying Allen Robinson because he's still kind of youngish and like just has been in bad situations.
Well, who would you rather have?
I would rather have
Allen Robinson.
Okay, fair enough. That's fine. And one last name, Tyler Lockett.
Obviously, Tyler Lockett.
He's making 17.25.
Yeah, Mike Evans is making 16.5. Like I would much rather have Mike Evans and Tyler.
But
Lockett.
Evans' contract came before Tyler Lockett's, I believe. Tyler just got paid relatively recently. My
point
is that
Brandon Cooks or Christian Kirk.
Cooks is actually more productive. He makes a lot more though, right?
No, Cooks is 16.25.
Oh, he's below. Okay, when I resorted it, I'm taking Cooks, even though he seems like a guy that gets traded every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, this is really not like so much about. I mean, I think the spot that Christian Kirk landed in when we first saw this is the problem. These deals get reported. It's like Christian Kirk signs a deal that could pay him up to $21 million or $84 million. And like, I did the math on my phone like several times. Like, are we 21 million? And then it comes out at 72 with $12 million in incentives. Now, maybe those incentives are easy to hit where it's $1 million for 1,000 yards, another $1 million for 1,500 yards. We don't know. We'll have to see. It could be, make a Pro Bowl, $1.5 million bonus or something, we have to see what those incentives are. If they're easy to hit, then I don't like the contract quite as much. But if him getting 21 million for each year means that he has to be super productive, then I don't mind it because I just think if you're like, that's just the cost of buying Christian Kirk on the market.
Brinson, it is Pi Day. It is March 14th, and I have to think all our math aficionados out there are disappointed that you have to use your phone calculator to do 84 divided by 4.
Well, that was the concern. I was like, in my head, I was like, that's 21 million. That can't be right. And so I was like, I have to check this out because I'm pretty sure that makes him the third highest paid wide receiver. Instead, like we'll see how this pans out. If he and Trevor Lawrence get on the same page, and I'm sure we'll hear glowing reports all offseason, then it could be a very, very productive deal. It's still asking a lot.
It does reinforce the fact that they have had trouble drafting and grooming wide receivers.
Oh yeah.
And I don't hate the Christian Kirk signing. I like him as a player. It just seems like a lot that they have the money to spend and he comes up 75% of what they were hoping for. That's fine. They're a better football team. That's fine.
If Trevor Lawrence bounces back under Doug Peterson, then I think Christian Kirk will have some pretty good stats. Another winner. I mentioned that Aiden Hutchinson was a winner as well because I think he's now minus 400 at Caesars to go number 1 overall. I think there's you want to go number 1 overall, right? Even if it means you're going to Jacksonville, I think you want to go first overall.
Yes.
Eli Manning did not want to go first overall.
Who did?
Eli Manning did not want to go first overall.
That's true. And now Aiden Hutchinson likely paired across from Josh Allen. I think that gives it, if they end up going this route, that gives him a really productive pass rush duo.
Caleb Chason, who they drafted a year after him. Josh Allen. Caleb Chason, who they also drafted in the first round after Josh Allen, is what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely. I was for a second there, I was like, wait, didn't they trade him? But they traded CJ Henderson. That's what it was.
Yeah. I was wondering what I thought you were having a stroke.
I was sort of having a stroke, having a brain stroke. Yeah. I mean, they got pass rushers to send after quarterbacks. I mean, it's a good thing. Breech. How about another winner from you?
My winner, who was a winner within the first 3 minutes after the tampering period started, is one Joe Burrow. I thought the Bengals made some major moves. Sure, you would love to see them get Brandon Scherf or one of the top tier offensive linemen. But you know what? They went down to tier 2 and they picked up 2 really good guys. Alex Kappa from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who Tom Brady called and personally tried to convince him to stay in Tampa Bay. And you know what Kappa said? He said, I'm on to Cincinnati. Get it? So, I mean, that's huge because, look, you know where the Bengals had the most problems on their offensive line? It was the interior. It was, the tackles struggled too, obviously, but the guard situation, the center situation.
I think they look at Jonah Williams as their future left, like a future left tackle. Like,
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, sorry to continue. I was just going to point out that while, we're like, oh, the Bengals need offensive line help everywhere. They drafted Jonah Williams in the first round. They stuck with him at left tackle last year. They want to roll with him at left tackle moving forward.
Right. And I think that the Bengals probably think that, hey, if we can make the interior better, that's going to help Jonah Williams. It's going to make the whole offensive line better. And so you bring in Alex Kappa, who probably is going to be your day one starting right guard. You're only paying him $10 million a year, which is a lot for the Bengals, but not a lot when you're talking about, I mean, it makes that spot instantly better. And so, you replay the Super Bowl tomorrow, Joe Burrow is probably not getting sacked 7 times, maybe only 5. And then, you know what? The one that surprised me was Ted Karras. I didn't see that coming. They need a center. Trey Hopkins has struggled a little bit. And the thing about Karras is that he can play any of the positions. So if you have him at center, that's probably where he's best. But with Belichick and the Patriots, he was doing everything. I mean, they had him playing left guard, right guard, and center in 2021. I think he did most of his snaps, majority of his snaps at left guard last season. But in the 4 seasons before that, it was predominantly center. So you have a guy who can do anything on the interior offensive line. I mean, these are just 2 huge additions for the Bengals, and Burrow has to be thrilled right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, the Bengals have had success in recent years. And we talked about, we were sort of talking about this in our chat, but like people will point out, people like to act like the Bengals are cheap. And there's a good NFL media stat or whatever from Aditi Kinkobala that shows that the Bengals are actually willing to spend and have been more aggressive in spending in free agency since they drafted Joe Burrow. And so I think with, what you don't need to go out and, you just went to the Super Bowl. You don't have to go out and spend everything on Brandon Scherf and just hope that it works out. You can go out and grab some offensive linemen who are better mid-tier values and leave yourself room to continue to spend. The reason that they had this money to spend is that they've been smart about their spending. And so the one thing we said the Bengals had to do this offseason was go get offensive line help. And they did it on the first day of free agency without making some crazy big splash signing and still leaving themselves some flexibility to maybe go get additional help.
So, Breech, what do you want them to do in the first round now?
You know what? The luxury of picking at 31st overall, which I'd never thought I'd ever see the Bengals do.
Can I guess real quick? Matt Ride's a punter.
No, a kicker. I knew you were going to guess him. I should have guessed who you were going to guess. Is that I feel like they can go out and get whoever they want. You don't have to lock yourself into a position. You don't have to get to that spot in the draft and say, if you're picking 8th overall and you need a tackle, you better take a tackle because you're picking high and you want to get one of the best in the draft. But when you're picking at 31, you just fill the hole that needs to be filled. So you take, maybe that's the best athlete on the board, because if you lock yourself into a position, say the Bengals are saying, hey, let's take a tackle, but then 5 tackles go off the board in the first round, and now you're taking the 6th best tackle who's projected to be the 50th best player in the draft at 31st overall. Well, then that's dumb. You're reaching. So I just like that they have a lot of options and they don't have to kind of put themselves in a hole where they have to be forced to take a certain position.
Another winner. Unless you want to add more to the Bengals.
No, they did the right thing.
Another winner, Devonte Adams has to be put on the list. So we're talking about these wide receiver contracts. There's one massive outlier, and that's DeAndre Hopkins. So it basically goes up. Mike Williams just signed for $20 million. Kirk obviously signed for 18. There's a couple guys in there. Godwin on the tag. Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen. Mike Williams signed for just under what Keenan Allen makes, like $25,000 less per year, which is kind of funny. Devonte Adams at 21.45, which is the tag number. Julio Jones at 22. And then there's this massive gap up to Nuke Hopkins at 27.25. That I think that is the problem that the Packers and Devonte Adams are dealing with right now. The Packers probably want to say, hey, look, man, DeAndre Hopkins is an outlier contract. We want to get you in the $23 to $25 million per year range. And Devonte Adams is like, no, you need to pay me more than DeAndre Hopkins. I've been the best wide receiver in football for like 2 years now. I'm not taking less than what the top guy is being paid. I don't care if you think it's an outlier. And not many, when Calvin Johnson was doing this a few years back, nobody like even bothered trying to leapfrog him because it's like, all right, Megatron is that much better. But I see Devonte Adams' point. You get this $20 million a year franchise tag. You look at this guy is as productive as they come. And if you're the Packers and you're trying to go all in on Aaron Rodgers this year, you have to pay Devonte Adams. And he said he won't play on the franchise tag, which means that they now have a mess on their hands. And I think the fact that somebody like Kristen Kirk can go out and get $18 million a year without ever having a 1,000-yard season only leverages up Devonte Adams even more than before. Like Marquez Valdes-Scantling might go out and get $12 million a year. And it's a hard sell to Devonte Adams to say, please take less money than DeAndre Hopkins. And I think that's fair.
And they just re-signed Preston Smith as well.
Yep. And cut Zadarius Smith. So
it puts the Packers in an impossible situation because you get why they're saying, look, man, we can't give you basically want $27.5 million a year, which just blows the market out of the water because you only have this one outlier contract. What you just mentioned, Brinson, I'm sure the Packers would be more than happy to throw, hey, do you want 23, 24? We will make you the second highest paid receiver. Devonte Adams just like, hey, have you seen my production? I'm not doing that. And the other thing that's interesting about the Packers is that we have now been waiting a week for this Aaron Rodgers contract. And it is 4:30 on Monday, less than 48 hours before Green Bay has to be in compliance with the salary cap. And we haven't seen it yet. So, maybe Rodgers is texting Devonte saying, what do you want, man? I'll make my numbers. I'll finagle them so that you can get what you want. But I do think it's interesting that
I think Rodgers, my theory is Rodgers is
spiting Rappaport.
No, maybe. Not waiting. He is helping his boy out and waiting to sign the actual contract that has been agreed upon until the Packers make things right with Devonte Adams. In other words, Adams could refuse to play and Rodgers could not sign the contract and retire, and the Packers would be so screwed.
Yeah, but it seems to me that instead of doing all that, just structure a contract in such a way that allows Devonte to get paid what he wants instead of waiting for the Packers to sort it out.
Sure. I agree with that. But the problem is, does he trust these guys to make it right with Devonte Adams? Like they may say, here's our limit on what we want to, what we want to do. I don't know. I think that makes a little bit of sense as to why we don't have actual numbers on Aaron Rodgers.
I don't know.
Well, clearly he hasn't signed the contract because the deal hasn't been processed in the NFLPA system, like it's not been processed on the back end of the contracting system. Like he clearly, I know that people were mad about his tweet. Like, why does he care? But it's like, he hasn't signed it because somebody would have the explicit details of the contract. If he had, it would be in the system and someone will have gotten access to it,
And he almost certainly has to sign one. There is no way he cannot not sign a new contract because the Packers, they're still $18 million over the cap, and that has to be fixed by Wednesday. So, and the easiest way to do that is restructure Aaron Rodgers and pick up
the good news?
$15 million.
We'll be podcasting at 4 p.m. on Wednesday as well, so we'll all find out together.
When Rodgers tweets out, okay, my deal's done.
I can't wait to get that flurry of work emails announcing stuff that we already knew was done.
Yeah.
4 p.m. every Wednesday. Okay. I think we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll do losers, although the first loser, I think we could actually argue is a winner.
Ooh.
Probably not, though.
This is about our legacy. Always has been and always will be. Paramount Plus presents Women Who Move Mountains. Everybody ready? Let's fly. A celebration of the powerful, hilarious, I'm famous! Game-changing women who bring our series and stories to life. And they're all here on Paramount Plus. women who move mountains. Explore the collection and so much more on Paramount Plus.
Okay, so losers.
By the way, I love how Debo just snuck in, probably not, and then just hit the commercial button.
No, he really did. And speaking of sneaking in, Debo decided to passive aggressively toss the Steelers in here as losers, even though I think it's basically to spite Wilson for all the Carson Wentz slander over the past week or so.
Truth telling.
Strictly based on Vegas odds.
It is wild that the Steelers signed Mitchell Trubisky to a 2-year deal. And Wilson was actually, I think you were kind of happy about this, but
I've been saying for weeks that he was my number one free agent because Jameis was going back to New Orleans.
I mean, I just think if you're I'm trying to think what a better outcome would be than Mitchell Trubisky if you're the Steelers.
Exactly. It ain't Dwayne Rudolph. Or Mason Haskins.
Mason Haskins.
Also, by the way, those odds, which Debo so gleefully, I think you put them into Slack, Brinson. But that
was not me.
Was it Debo?
It might have been me.
It was you.
Okay.
But our buddy Joe Musso, who's a Bears fan, also sent them to me. And they went from 55-1 with Mason Haskins to 71 with Trubisky. That just seems like made up. There's no way that this team has longer Super Bowl odds with Mason Rudolph no longer their quarterback.
Here's what I would suggest is the logic behind that. The Vegas, like we were talking about with the 49ers and Tom Brady, Vegas was cautioning against was preparing against the fact that if the Steelers went out and traded for Deshaun Watson.
Fair enough. Or even Aaron Rodgers, I guess, back a couple weeks ago, whatever.
Yeah. Maybe they dialed him back to 50-1 from like 35-1 when the Rodgers stuff was real. Then you move him back to 50-1.
Yeah. All right.
And then they actually signed Trubisky, which one of the things that's interesting about, and then so they know now we think Trubisky is the starter, put it back to 75-1.
By the way, that's the smartest thing you've said in probably 4 months. So I'll give you much credit for that.
Thank you. You know what's interesting about the Trubisky deal?
Yeah, here we go. You're back to being a dummy. Go ahead.
Not a peep of the financials. When does that ever happen?
What it happened with, I think Marcus Mariota didn't come out.
That tells you that the Steelers got a steal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But why would he? And this has been Debo's point for days now. Why is he even in demand? Because he just sat there very quietly and didn't throw any interceptions. That's why. So why would he suddenly go from the 1 year, whatever? He probably made a veteran minimum deal. I can't imagine it was a lot in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Why is he going to pay him 2 years? I bet you think it's 2 years, $20 million?
I was going to say over under $10 million.
Yeah,
per year.
I think it's under because Andy Dalton he's the 1 year, $10 million a year guy, and at least Andy Dalton has a track record. As much as we make fun of him when Breech keeps bringing him up, he's not Andy Dalton in terms of the success he's had in the NFL. Now the cost of living and all that, but I figure it's going to be right around $10 million, or maybe it's more, but I feel like it should be less. If it was more, I feel like he would have come out already.
There's a very clear drop off from all the starters in the NFL with Tom.
Are you looking at the salaries now?
Yeah, with
what
Tom
did Trubisky make last year? Sorry,
how much did who?
What did Trubisky make last year? Do you know? You have that in front of you?
$2.5 million.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Well, so there's a drop off. It's basically like every single starter, and then you have Tom Brady at the bottom at $25 million. That'll probably get adjusted. Then you go down to Teddy Bridgewater, 11.5, Ryan Fitzpatrick, 10, Taysom Hill, 10. And then you get into the rookie contracts with Lawrence, Burrow, Murray, Wilson, Trey Lance. And then you have Baker still on there, Cam Newton, Tua. Darnold should actually be higher because I think he's getting $18 million this year. But the point remains the same, is that there is this huge sort of window where franchise quarterbacks are going to make $25 million or more per year. And somebody like a Mitchell Trubisky, who is probably more like a backup, but maybe could parlay it into, like a backup money's like 2.5 or something like that.
In 2 years, he can parlay that into big money.
That's what I'm saying. Like he got paid like a backup last year. He's going to get starter money this year. So I would guess that it's somewhere
he's not getting starter money this year.
He's not getting franchise quarterback money. I think he'll get starter money, which is like Teddy Bridgewater. Is it like $10 million a year? I think 10 is a pretty good number. And paying your quarterback $10 million a year for 2 years is not bad if you end up getting good production from him.
If you pay Kristen Kirk $18 million, you can certainly pay your starting quarterback $10 million.
Well, it's a steal. If you get if the Steelers make the playoffs and he's only making $10 million a year, that's a fantastic deal.
There's no way it's above 15, right?
It would be out by now, I would imagine. Or maybe the Steelers are embarrassed and don't want it out.
Yeah, that could be why it's not out. I would guess it's 10-ish, like right around 10-ish, maybe
with a bunch of escalators in there.
Bunch of escalators, bunch of incentives, make the Pro Bowl, Steelers make the playoffs, blah, 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 blah.
And you know what? Maybe the Giants, because you've talked about them, maybe they offered more. Maybe there's some other places that offered more, but this is probably the best landing spot for him. I don't know who else would be in the running. New Orleans, I would imagine Jameis or Deshaun or whatever. I don't think Mitch would be in the running down there. They have Taysom Hill, which is the same thing, but older and more brittle. So
Colts could be a good spot for him.
Colts might be a good spot for him, but they're so recently burned by Carson Wentz. Maybe they want to move on from the athletic quarterback.
I mean, it's very possible that he, did he grow up a Steelers fan? Am I crazy for thinking that?
Trubisky, he is from
Ohio,
the best state in the country, Brinson.
He's not from North Carolina. He played college football in North Carolina.
Ohio. The answer is Ohio.
Anyway, my point being is that this is a good landing spot with a stable situation. Why not take the money and go be the Steelers quarterback for 2 years? If you ball out, you are going to get a ton of money moving forward.
How often does that happen, by the way, that a retread balls out? My 25-year-old retread balls out and gets paid. I'm trying to think. Nothing pops to mind. Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah,
that's best case scenario.
That's actually a great example. That's the perfect example.
That's the absolute ceiling for Mr. Trubisky. The floor, of course, is Mr. Trubisky.
if the Steelers got Ryan,
that's huge.
And they're actually kind of similar quarterbacks, I think.
And they left a situation that wasn't great for them.
Minimal starts, drafted really high in the first round. Good production statistically at their first landing spot, but you sort of knew it just wasn't there. And, athletic guys who can throw on the run. I mean, look, it's very Trubisky only had 12 starts in college, and then he was thrust into the Bears gig with John Fox for a year, and then Matt Nagy in that disastrous situation. And there's just so much pressure on him. I think a year. I mean, I don't think he's magically fixed everything by being in Buffalo, but I think a year working behind Josh Allen, working with Brian Dable, and that coaching staff will go a long way. Do the Steelers still have? Who's the Steelers? It's not Matt Canada, is it?
Oh yeah, they kept him around, and maybe look. I was sort of trying to talk myself into this. Maybe this motion offense with an athletic quarterback helps, and that's why Tomlin was talking it up at points this offseason. We'll see. If you can't throw accurately, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And to reinforce our Bears friends, Joe Musso and Sean Wagner McGuff, both took great pleasure in making fun of me about the new Steelers quarterback. By the way, which I was quite happy to have, as I made clear.
Well, I mean, I asked you guys in Slack, what do you think that Mitchell Trubisky is an upgrade over 2021 Ben Roethlisberger?
He's less accurate, but more athletic. That's what I said.
So is that an upgrade?
It's like half a dozen of one. I think Big Ben wasn't good at throwing deep balls. I don't remember Mr. Trubisky being especially good at that either. So I think he adds more of an element in terms of if you do want to do more RPO stuff, he probably makes things easier for Najee Harris, who took 1,000 hits last year. And you still have to fix the offensive line. And maybe if he has more time back there, I'm just hoping that Brian Dable has some sort of secret sauce about how to make quarterbacks more accurate. He did it with Josh Allen, and maybe some of that rubbed off on Mr. Trubisky. Because if he's out there short hopping passes and missing guys wide ass open, which is what made Matt Nagy so angry, then you're just sort of watching $10 million burn. Yeah,
I mean, I think regardless, you will this gives you some stability, even if it's like I think it gives you a pretty good ceiling, a fairly decent floor, and you're not panicked. I like this idea better than Jimmy G, and I'm a Jimmy G guy, right? Just
Thank you. That I agree with.
You're not giving up any draft compensation, and the QB class isn't great, so you don't have to waste a draft pick on a quarterback. This is basically your gap year. You take Trubisky. If he plays well, boom, you have your starter. And if he doesn't, then you are back at square one next year, and maybe there'll be another quarterback available.
By the way, Debo crushing the stats, even though he hates talking about Mr. Trubisky. He notes that the Bears schemed open throws to Trubisky by using play action. 34.2% play action rate was second highest in the NFL, behind Tannehill in 2020.
Tannehill, that was our similarity.
And then the Steelers last season, 12.1% of their passes were play action, lowest play action rate.
Well, I mean, you can't run play action with Ben because he'll trip over his own feet or be tackled by the time that he fakes the handoff.
And that's exactly what Matt
RPO, a Ben Roethlisberger RPO. It doesn't mean
more like RP. No.
That was double dunk.
Double Harlan. Yeah, I'm fine with it. The Steelers are better today than they were yesterday, and probably the same as they were 2 months ago.
Let me ask you this. do you think there's do you think there's a chance that the Steelers, and they're more likely to fall, I think, now because of the way that these teams are sort of filling up their rosters? Do you think the Steelers would consider taking Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis and then having, because like could Mitchell Trubisky get Trubisky'd? Just like he did to Glennon, could he end up getting in a? And I think the Steelers would be more patient with him. But we see this a lot where these teams go out and sign this sort of middling, bounce back.
Yeah, but they have that guy in Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins. You already have a scrub first round pick on there, and a guy that you said was a first round grade. I don't know if you go out and get another quarterback if you love this quarterbacks class. I get it. I mean, maybe they do it, but it just feels like, do you need 3 retread veteran quarterbacks to draft another one? You can do that too.
Shout out to Quinn Rep in the comments. I did not see that comment before. I just saw it was Brinson stealing my question. It's a great question. You can toss it out there. Is Pickett there for the Steelers? What do you do? It's actually on our rundown.
You take an offensive lineman. Hopefully.
Now Brinson's giving credit.
Yeah, he gets called out to his face. Then he backpedals.
I saw a stat that said it was like every quarterback signed in free agency for like in between like $10 and $15 million per year over the last like 15 years. The team also drafted a quarterback that year.
So you're admitting to stealing that stat you just saw that you didn't just give credit to. Got it.
Probably took it from Nick Underhill too.
Hey-o! You don't like forget nothing today.
Oh, hey. All right. Anything else on the Steelers quarterback situation?
Breech, are you more nervous today than you were yesterday about the Steelers?
Ooh.
You don't care.
1% more nervous. I think Trubisky is a huge step up from Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins, or, I think he's a decent fit for the Steelers offense. So, yes, I am, they'll say 3% more worried.
Yeah, I think what you're getting basically Cordell Stewart from 20 years ago. And that was fun at times.
Except now teams know how to use quarterbacks like that.
Yeah, it was frustrating at times too. Don't get me wrong, but Cordell was at least exciting. So hopefully, like I said to you guys, 3 weeks optimism September, then reality will set in, and I'll wish they had drafted Kenny Pickett or Sam Howell or Malik Willis.
Okay.
Wilson, have you ordered Trubisky Steelers jersey yet?
I already ordered one. I have to return my Deshaun, Russ Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey though.
Tough scene.
More losers.
Yeah, more losers. Debo threw Pete Prisco on here as a loser. You'll love to see
Why
it.
would it Pete do?
Oh, timing.
Our offense to do it.
So if you're
watching on
listening,
YouTube,
if you're listening, you have to go to YouTube and look at the 42nd minute mark to see Pete Prisco having a meltdown.
Some incredible gifts of Pete melting down on this very show.
Debo, do you remember what the Brinson face was about?
No.
I don't either. Because I think that was when we did the Pick Six podcast from Indianapolis, and he just made that face. I assumed he was probably saying something about Brinson, but you get that face a lot. Anyway, so why is Pete Prisco loser? Just for that? So we could do that?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, awesome.
Running backs getting paid, Pete's a loser. And Pete also got dragged on Twitter by somebody who's like, oh, now we're just referring to these people as race horses. Pete pointed out that James Conner and Chase Edmonds. Both Cardinals running backs last year. James Conner got a 3-year deal to stick around in Arizona.
$21 million up to 24.5, I think. Just
to continue to pile on touchdowns. I mean, he was really good for the Cardinals.
Inside of 2 yards, he was unstoppable.
Yeah, that's right. And Chase Edmonds got cash from the Miami Dolphins, where he will almost certainly be overdrafted. He got 2 years, $12.6 million. To go run.
Fine with that. He averaged over 5 yards a carry. They desperately need running backs. That's Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel, possess his thing. Why not?
I'm saying I think he'll be overdrafted in fantasy because of his.
No, I got that part, but I don't hate the signing for the Dolphins.
No, I think it's a fine signing. And Prisco points out Chase Edmonds is a nice player, but this draft has 15 to 20 or so backs who'll be good players. Draft, run them into the ground, and draft another. Pretty simple.
That's what made the person angry and call him a horse wrangler or whatever they call him.
That's right. And so, yes. So people call Pete, people call Pete callous, and Pete's like, whatever.
Get off
and
my
now,
yada yada.
Yeah. So Pete's a loser for bashing on running backs and then watching them get paid. Oh, here's a spicy little nugget. Speaking of the Miami Dolphins,
Who are you going to steal this one from?
This is Adam Schefter reporting it.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
The Miami Dolphins are pulling him out of retirement to sign him.
Oh.
Ben Roethlisberger. They're signing Teddy Bridgewater to a one-year deal to be the backup quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. There is 100% a chance at some point there will be calls for Teddy Bridgewater to replace Tua Tagovailoa.
There's a 100% chance that Teddy Bridgewater plays next season. I would sign the worst quarterback I could find just so you don't have to have. That's exactly where your mind went. That's where my mind went. And I would imagine if Breech wasn't thinking about cats, that's where his mind would have gone as well. You're like, okay, this guy's too close to Tua that he's going to actually challenge him for the job and never have to deal with it. You just signed the worst backup you can find. I don't even know who that is.
I would disagree just in the sense that like Teddy Bridgewater could work really well in Mike McDaniel's system in that Kyle Shanahan where it schemes things open. If Tua doesn't work out or Tua gets hurt, you have a fallback option. You're trying to win now. And Teddy Bridgewater is like the nicest person on the planet. There's no way he's going to rock the boat.
I get all that. I don't disagree with any of that.
Don't rock the boat.
But I think you want Tua to play, and you don't want him looking over his shoulder, which was the case with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That second part, I think, is the big one because what if, even if you want Tua to play, what if you get to training camp and Teddy Bridgewater just looks better?
Well, then Brian Flores is right about trying to get rid of him.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying is that you have people who have no faith in Tua and putting this extra pressure on him because he has to keep looking over his shoulder. I
thought you were saying this is why you should bring in Teddy. You're saying don't put any more pressure on him.
Right. Well, no, I'm saying if you want Tua to be your quarterback, this is probably not a great move.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree with that. And I don't know if he is or not, but I'm just saying if you new coach and all that other stuff, and he maybe I don't know if he has a fragile psyche or not, but he doesn't seem to perform well under pressure. Sign the worst backup quarterback you can find. Geno Smith, if you will, Debo.
This is Teddy's fourth team since 2019. He is on a whirlwind tour to get
Brandon Cooks the quarterbacks.
All right, Teddy got paid by the Panthers. Teddy's fine. What do you think? How much do you think they'll give Teddy?
Less than Mitch?
Here's the other thing too. Is like we talked about the quarterback contracts.
7.5 is my guess.
5.5.
Tua makes $7.568 million a year this year. You can't pay Teddy more than Tua.
I said 7.5, so I just came in under, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think anything 7.5 or less. I would think you do try and get it under 7 if possible.
Imagine he would have other offers as well. Maybe he just thought he's a South Florida guy, I think.
Yep.
Florida so maybe he wanted to go home or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a connection with McDaniel.
Who? Teddy Bridgewater? What's
Mike
up?
Jones.
Let's go.
I mean, but he literally went to high school in Miami. This feels like just a return home, collect a paycheck, sit on the bench, and root for Tua with a clipboard in your hand.
Until you got to play because, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's Tua's missed plenty of time.
But hey, maybe the whole deal, Mike McDaniel is the run game guy, and you bring in Chase Evans, and maybe Tua's just handed the ball off a lot.
I think this is we're comfortable signing. I'm trying to see if there's a crossover with McDaniels, and I don't see anything.
It'd just be Teddy went to Northwestern and wants to go home.
Yeah, that seems like
Our Jonathan Jones is reporting that the Dolphins and wide receiver Cedric Wilson are closing in on a 3-year deal as well.
Dolphins are loading up.
I like these sort of second tier signings for the Dolphins versus, instead of the Dolphins for years have gone out and made big splashy signings. Stephen Ross loved it, like Mike Wallace and Ndamukong Suh, and they just never worked out. This is you're supplementing your roster in free agency. That's what you're supposed to do. You got some draft picks. Emmanuel Ogbah, also to the Dolphins, 4-year. Okay, that's a splash signing. 4-year, $65 million deal with $32 million fully guaranteed. That is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Did I miss anything else that the Dolphins did there, Tebow? Sorry, good call.
No, yeah, he's been with them for 2 years, but bringing him back on a hefty deal.
And what was his? I guess Chris Greer likes him. Had 9 sacks each of the last 2 years. Good player, still youngish. That's a lot of money. Gotta have the pass rush though.
You gotta love him to give him that type of money.
Yeah. I don't call him speaking of pass rushers, by the way, we'll just mention this here. Not that I think that this is a loser situation. But the Eagles signed Hassan Reddick for 3 years and $45 million. Teddy, you talked about Teddy going home. Hassan Reddick going home too. The Temple product is from around there. I'm sure Devo can tell us exactly where in that godforsaken state of Pennsylvania he's from.
It's from Camden in New Jersey.
Oh, even worse, New Jersey.
No, it
Worst.
But played his home college football games at Lincoln Financial Field, not in the same locker room. I think a much crappier locker room for the Temple Owls. But yeah. Nice signing. Probably marks the end of Derek Barnett's tenure in Philadelphia. It does seem like the Eagles will bring back Brandon Graham, who's been a big piece of that team for a decade plus. So pretty happy with the signing. Last time they kind of made a splash for a defensive lineman was Malik Jackson.
Oh, God dang. I thought you said Javon Hargrave, man.
I was going to say and Javon Hargrave. So both the past 2 years, one worked out, one did not. Hopefully this one, but he's been elite the past 2 seasons rushing the passer.
He's had 23 and a half, sacks the last 2 years. 5th most in the NFL over those 2 seasons, behind only TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, and Aaron Donald. More than Robert Quinn and Cameron Jordan. That's pretty good.
Trey Hendrickson's on that list, and that's another thing worth noting. Last year, who's the edge rusher that walked to the Jets and he immediately got hurt, Breech?
Carl Lawson.
So Carl Lawson got hurt, and we were all crushing the Bengals for not spending on Carl Lawson and instead spending on Trey Henderson. Trey Henderson worked out.
Yeah.
So sometimes we don't know what we're yelling and screaming about this time of year, but that that's what we do.
Well, you don't know. The other thing on Trey Hendrickson was that you didn't know if he was a product of playing next to Cam Jordan. If teams are focusing so much on Cam, that it frees things up for Hendrickson. But he obviously proved that is not the case. And I feel like Hassan Reddick is a similar player in the sense that kind of overshadowed, that it's not someone who's talked about a lot and has been dominant for the past 2 seasons. So, Tebow knows more than anyone that the Eagles need some pass rush on defense. So this is a fantastic signing. I move the Eagles to my winners list.
All right. Let's take another break. And when we come back, we'll tell you about some breaking-ish news on a big, actually it is breaking news, we just got to confirm it, on a big free agent signing next.
We're not doing a commercial.
I'm aware of that. I was waiting for Breech to quit gurgling like a baby so I could get the silent break in there for Debo to edit in the audio commercial that will be played. Ooh. Instead, Breech's like, ooh. All right, looks like as many expected would happen, J.C. Jackson is heading to the Chargers on what Ian Rappaport reports is a, quote, big money deal. We'll have to wait and see exactly what comes in, but the Chargers are like, this AFC West race is crazy. The Chargers have added Khalil Mack and now J.C. Jackson, assuming once we get these reports confirmed. I mean, that is a big time move by the Chargers to try and stay competitive in a division where the Chiefs are the top end team and the Broncos just landed Russell Wilson.
I'm hearing that Russ Wilson has requested a trade back to Seattle.
I mean, seriously. J.C. Jackson, Pete Prisco's number 3 overall quarterback. And I mean, no, number all free agent. Whew. No, number 1 overall cornerback, I believe. There wasn't anybody above him, was there? Certainly not. And of course, I think the most interceptions of anybody in the NFL over the last 2 years. The Patriots declined to franchise tag him and let him walk into free agency. They knew he was going to get a ton of money. There are definitely fair questions to be asked. Will he be as productive as he was in New England elsewhere? But, the Chargers have a pretty good defense. And
who's their coach?
What's that?
Your coach is Brandon Staley, defensive guy.
Yeah, Brandon Staley can get the most out of guys.
No, I love it.
Should be able to.
I'd be curious to see what the money is. It sounds like it's going to be key Argo.
I mean, he's got to be up near Jaylen Ramsey, right? Think it's $20 million a year?
Let's look at cornerback.
The one thing that's interesting while you're looking that up, and if you watch on YouTube, you see the stat, J.C. Jackson, most interceptions in first 4 seasons since the merger. He is tied for the most in NFL history. That's an insane number. And I think the one interesting thing about the Patriots letting him walk is that Bill Belichick appreciates shut down corners. If there's one type of player that the Patriots will almost always pay defensively, it's a shutdown corner. We saw them go after Darrelle Revis. We saw them give a big money deal to Stephon Gilmore until I think Belichick felt like, all right, Gilmore's kind of lost a step. We're just going to let him go. We're going to get rid of him. And so the fact that they didn't try to keep J.C. Jackson is interesting. It just feels like maybe Belichick felt like Jackson was a product of his defensive system.
Woo!
I just think they didn't want to pay.
What do you want to guess? What do you want to guess the number is?
I don't know. What is the top? Who's the top
22 mil.
quarterback? Who's the top cornerback now?
Jaylen Ramsey.
What does he make?
Jaylen Ramsey makes. Oh, actually, that's not as. So it's a lot of money, but it's not more than Jaylen Ramsey.
Oh, okay.
He makes $20 million a year. Wow, this is actually kind of.
And what'd you guess, Breech? You
Brinson
already
trying
went
to
over?
do math without his phone calculator.
He's just guessing now. He's making up numbers. He's making,
82. I mean, this is relative to the market. This is not that crazy. $82.5 million. That's a lot of money.
over.
5 years.
So what's the math on that?
With $40 million fully guaranteed, or $40 million guaranteed.
16.5 per year.
16.5. So that puts him behind it makes him the fifth highest paid cornerback in the league, or sixth, excuse me. Behind Jaylen Ramsey, Marlon Humphrey, Marshawn Lattimore, Tre'Davious White, and Darius Slay. I think that's fair.
No. He should be the highest paid cornerback if he thinks he's the best, and he was the number one free agent coming out. That feels like a Patriots bargain, if anything.
I mean, it's a Chargers bargain.
My point is that these are the type of bargains the Patriots typically get, it feels like.
Yeah, if that's what he wanted in free agency. When I first saw the 82.5 and I was thinking like, oh, he got over 20 and he's beating Jaylen Ramsey.
Brinson was like, he signed a 1-year
I was
deal
like,
for 82.5.
I was like, that doesn't make it. Well, I was like, that's the math. That math doesn't add up.
And I'm surprised there weren't more suitors, or maybe again, it's just a good fit and all that.
I think that's a kind of a red flag that's what he got in free agency. So, because I mean, the Patriots clearly had negotiated with him and weren't willing to give him what he wanted.
Do we know that the Patriots negotiated? Was that reported anywhere?
Yeah. They tried to work a deal, and it was like the sides were so far apart they couldn't figure it out. Which means, I mean, I guess the Patriots are trying to give him like $13 million a year.
So he's now tied as the sixth highest paid corner in the NFL based on average annual salary. And that's kind of what I was saying before Brinson brought up the huge number, is that it feels like Belichick let him walk because maybe he felt like the Patriots were more help to Jackson than Jackson. Basically, that he could just fill in where Jackson was because of Belichick's brilliant defensive system that can make stars out of anyone as long as everyone does their job. So it is crazy they let him walk, and then to see him only get $16.5 million, I think is also a little bit surprising.
Yeah, that's a little.
Patriots also have a lot less cap space this year because they burned through it like they were the Jaguars.
$300 million in the first 12 hours of free agency.
Yeah.
I think our Monday podcast was literally just 90 minutes to talk about the Patriots last year.
Yeah, God, that's right. Oh, that's what it was on Monday. The Monday of last year was Belichick just making it rain. It was like crazy. Like we didn't know what the hell.
It was Jonnu Smith. It was Hunter Henry. Kendrick Bourne. Was that his first year?
Yep.
Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, the pass rusher from Baltimore. His name.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Matthew Judon.
I was about to say Matt Jones. I was like, who the hell's Matt?
That's close.
Okay. And then they drafted some guy named Mac Jones.
That's right. Oh yeah, Matt Jones. Yeah, Matthew Judon.
Matt Torkel.
Okay. So let's get to some rumors and innuendo.
Rumors.
Brinson has hair plugs.
Oh, by the way, we should actually mention the Sunday moves that went down. Kirk Cousins. Did we talk about Cousins?
We talked about it on the Brady.
We said that the Vikings were winners.
Briefly, yeah.
The Vikings were winners because Brady's contract overshadowed the fact that Cousins is getting more money.
And then the Vikings will be losers once the season starts.
For those that didn't listen to the Tom Brady Came Out of Retirement podcast, we should mention.
Pause right now, go back and listen to it, and then come back and start listening right here.
Kirk Cousins gets a 1-year extension, $35 million. He remains the king, maybe the GOAT of guaranteed monay.
Let's friggin' go.
He hadn't had a non-guaranteed deal since 2014. Like every single year of his deal, every single contract has been fully guaranteed. Michael Gallup re-upped with the Cowboys for 5 years and $62.5 million. Then they traded Amari Cooper, so they need to bring Gallup back. They'd sort of planned for this to possibly happen. And of course, they believe CeeDee Lamb is their number one. Zach Ertz re-signed with the Cardinals for 3 years and $31.65 million, a really hefty deal for Ertz. But he and James Conner now locked in as the veteran guys in that clubhouse who came over last year, in the middle of last year, depending on which one you're talking about, and helped them make the playoffs. And Devin McCourty back to the Patriots on a 1-year, $9 million deal. The rumors du jour about various quarterbacks are that the Saints and Panthers will meet with Deshaun Watson amongst other teams. What do we think? Where do we handicap the Saints and Panthers? Where do we handicap the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes right now, Wilson?
I guess it's down to those two teams. But again, I don't even know what Deshaun Watson's thinking. I think you would rather go to New Orleans. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. I don't know. New Orleans still has those serious salary cap issues. We don't know what Michael Thomas is doing.
I would play for the Saints and the Panthers.
Yeah, but I'm saying they
the
don't.
Seahawks have to be involved too, right?
Again, no offensive line. You're going to get killed.
I'm going to be the outlier here. I'm going to say that I think he wants to play for the Panthers. I think he's going to look at the situation that each team or every team involved offers. I don't think the Seahawks are even an ideal landing spot. The Saints.
So here's the thing, Breech. If you thought he took a lot of sacks in Houston, it's not going to get better just by showing up at Carolina. They have no draft picks, so I'll have to give up the 6th overall pick. I would imagine as part of the deal.
But you have a good defense. If Christian McCaffrey's
they don't have a good defense.
They have a pretty good defense. It's a young defense. They're only going to get better.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the Panthers have the highest ceiling. So if he's going to be at his next spot for 4 years,
you'd rather go to Carolina than New Orleans or
70
Seattle?
years old. You think he's going to be there for, you don't know how much longer the head coach is going to be there.
Well, there's a rumor out there that David Tepper was going to tell Deshaun Watson he could pick his coach.
I mean, that would get me there. If I'm
What did
Deshaun
Matt Rule
Watson
say when he heard the rumor?
Well, the idea being, it's like, do you want Brian Flores to be your coach? Because I can make that happen.
I can't make it happen now.
And David Tepper is completely the type of person. He's the type of person that would get on the Zoom call because Deshaun Watson wants to talk with everyone and say, Deshaun, you tell me what you want and I'll make it happen. And no jokes.
On paper, I don't think the Panthers are the best option. Breech seems to think so.
My concern with the Panthers is that if you're Deshaun Watson, and I don't think he cares about this because he just wants to get out of Houston. Like he just wants out. He wants to be playing or at least find out what his situation is. If the Panthers have a terrible offensive line, they have okay wide receivers. Christian McCaffrey's maybe the best running back in football. Injured, but yeah, always injured, and huge albatross contract. And reportedly, it would take 3 draft picks and 2 players. The guys have been bandied about are Brian Burns and Derek Brown, who are like 2 blue chip defensive players.
By the way, as you were using your phone calculator, Breech was talking about how good this Panthers defense is.
Right. If you trade those two
depending
guys,
on who you have to trade away.
Oh, is that part of how it works?
You're like, hey, Deshaun, guess what? Now you're playing for the Texans, except it's in Charlotte. I mean, that's basically with no Larry Tunsil and no DeAndre Hopkins.
It's less humid, but everything else is going to be the exact same.
Right, exactly.
But the NFC South is total. You can win 9 games in the NFC South.
You sound like Matt Rule trying to save his job right now. Pitching.
The Panthers won 5 games with Sam Darnold and a washed-up Cam Newton. Like what? I think Deshaun Watson can get the 9 wins.
Okay, let's say that you don't give away both Burns and Brown.
Okay.
And you give them, let's say you give, let's say you keep one of those guys. I don't see how you can keep both of them.
Hey, Matt, go ahead. Let's say you can, though, just for the sake of argument. Go ahead.
The Texans will take 3 first-round picks from the Panthers, including number 6 overall this year, by the way, which is not terrible. I think that there's a path for the Panthers to make the playoffs as a wild card team in the NFC.
Oh, Brinson agrees
only
with me.
because last week we said the Bears have a path in the NFC, but Deshaun Watson was going to the playoffs regularly on really good Houston Texans teams.
He was kind of dragging those Texans teams to the playoffs.
They were good.
Okay, so if they get Deshaun Watson, they have what? Automatically the 3rd best quarterback in the NFC?
Yeah.
Behind Brady and Rodgers?
Who hasn't played in a year, but yeah, I give you that.
And I feel like you have the 3rd best quarterback in your conference. That's enough to make you a top 7 team in your conference.
Did the Seahawks go to the playoffs last year?
Did you say the best quarterback in the conference?
No, I said if you have the 3rd best quarterback in the conference, which I think Watson would be, then that makes you good enough to at least be the 7th best team in the conference, which will get you in the playoffs.
Let me ask you this. Did the Seahawks go to the playoffs last year?
They did not, but Russell Wilson was injured and missed a lot of the season.
Because why?
Clearly not happy with his coach.
Because he hates his coaching staff.
No, not why was he mad, but why was he injured? Because he was running for his life every single snap. I know why he was mad.
He got injured because he hit his hand on someone's helmet. That wasn't
wasn't blocked. I'm just telling you how it's going to play out.
I think Donald was actually being blocked. It was a freak accident. Russell Wilson has not gotten injured a single time in 9 or 10 years, and it was a freak happening.
I don't dispute they can make the playoffs, but do you want to be the 7th playoff seed every single year?
I mean, I think that rule would be in for this because it would mean that he would have a chance to make the playoffs.
And if you have Deshaun, aren't you the front runner to win the division as soon as Tom Brady retires? Retires instead of
not if you don't have any offensive linemen.
I mean,
all right, put those odds for the division back up again, Debo, if you will, please. Because I want to know what you would do, Wilson. How would you adjust these NFC South odds if Deshaun Watson were traded to Carolina? Currently, the Buccaneers -230, the Saints 4-1, the Panthers 7-1, and the Falcons 12-1. I would argue, pretty obviously, that the Panthers are 7-1 based on Deshaun Watson rumors.
Right? I was saying, why do people hate Matt Ryan so much on that? I mean, I think the Falcons will be better. Matt Ryan wasn't good last year, but
I would argue the Saints and the Panthers are both at those numbers because of the Deshaun Watson rumors.
I was going to say Saints and Jameis maybe plus 400. I guess he played well last year, but things are going to be different. The coaching, obviously, Mike Thomas is also an issue. He didn't play last year, but he may not play again in New Orleans. Obviously, if Deshaun Watson goes there, I think they move inside plus 400. If he goes to Carolina, that is. They'll leapfrog the Saints. I am sort of perplexed why the Falcons are so low in a truly dog doo-doo division as we currently sit here.
I think
Brinson's right. I think that
it's calculating one of the they think
Watson's going to end up with one of those two teams because I feel like if the Saints land Deshaun, the Panthers are going to fall below plus 1,000, and if the Panthers land Deshaun, I think the Saints fall below.
Well, let me ask you this: let's say the Saints land Deshaun, where does Jameis end up? Carolina?
Ooh.
No, I think if the Saints land Deshaun, the Panthers are going to make a mistake and draft Kenny Pickett at 6.
Well, James is not going to be unsigned. He's got to go somewhere and probably start.
Maybe he's coming off.
Seattle.
He's coming off an ACL tear.
Ooh, James in Seattle would be fascinating.
Yeah, James could work in Seattle.
He's no Geno Smith, mind you, but he might be able to give Drew Lock a run for his money.
Jameis or Carson Wentz?
Come on. Even Debo knows the answer to that question.
Jeez. Okay. So Baker Mayfield, also rumored, the Browns are fielding calls for Baker Mayfield. I'll tell you who I can see trading for Baker Mayfield.
Wait a second. Before you're burying the lead, that's where Deshaun needs to go. That's a layup.
That's
offensive line is fantastic if Conklin gets healthy. And you have the running game and the defense.
Cleveland has been bandied about as a team that could go after him.
Breech, would you be more upset about seeing Mr. Trubisky for the Steelers or Deshaun Watson in Cleveland?
I don't want Deshaun in Cleveland, but I will say that I think Deshaun is thinking, Burrow and the Bengals, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
But if you like competition and you could be protected, I think that
the guy just sat out of football for a year. I don't think he's just wants to play anywhere, probably. So I'm sure he doesn't.
Sounds like a man who's petrified that Deshaun Watson's coming to Cleveland.
No, I think Cleveland
making up words.
I think Cleveland. No, I was going to say that I don't think he's going to be too picky about where he. Well, I mean, he's going to want to go to.
That doesn't make any sense. What you're saying.
I think that Cleveland would be a good landing spot for him.
Thank you. That's all we wanted you to say.
That's where I was going in a roundabout way.
All right, what's the Baker Mayfield nonsense you're about to say?
Well, they're just fielding calls for Baker Mayfield. I mean, you could flip Baker Mayfield back to Houston in a Deshaun Watson deal.
Here's something I love. I love that we can just talk about anything now. I love Baker in Seattle.
That's what I was going to say before you rudely interrupted me about Deshaun. I love the idea of Baker in Seattle. Like the play action of Pete Carroll stuff with those
just
two
run the ball
receivers.
50 times a game.
Yeah. I think that could make a lot of sense. I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Seahawks felt like they could go grab Baker. And again, we talked about there's some buzz about swapping Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr. I know you hate that rumor, Wilson. I'm just telling you that the buzz is out there. And it just seems like there's a decent chance the Browns try to make a move at quarterback, but it's kind of getting to the point where there's just not a ton of options. Like,
I don't know how Baker ends up in Seattle, like how that benefits the Browns.
I mean, I guess you could trade Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, but what are the Texans
Seattle
get?
and like a 3-way team trade. But I think if you're Seattle and you can get Deshaun Watson, you just get Deshaun
Right, you
Watson.
skip the middleman, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, fancy.
Okay. The madness is upon us, and the Eye on College Basketball podcast is your audio guide for the entire NCAA tournament. Over the next few weeks, Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander, I was going to say friend of the program, but just real life friend, both real life friends. Matt Norlander will take you from Selection Sunday to the net cutting in New Orleans. This week, they'll help you fill out your bracket and provide recaps after each day of action as the tournament tips off. If you want the best March Madness analysis, follow and listen to the Eye on College Basketball podcast anywhere you find this show. Okay, so looking at the best remaining free agents from Prisco's list, we'll just kind of hit on the top guys. Like, this is the thing. Like, Tehran Armstead is the clear-cut number one free agent, and he didn't get signed today. Von Miller, Chandler Jones, unsigned. Carlton Davis, Marcus Williams, unsigned. Allen Robinson, Randy Gregory, unsigned. There's a bunch of guys from the top 10 and top 15 who haven't gotten signed yet, and that's why we didn't see quite the flurry that we might have seen. Oh, wait. Carlton Davis off the board, heading back to Tampa Bay as the Bucs re-sign their cornerback. Hashtag run it back.
Speaking of cornerbacks, I want to note this quickly. Stephen O just released his numbers for the Chargers. Don't look at it if you have it in your email. So before they traded for Mack and signed J.C. Jackson, they were simulated to win 8.7 games next season. What do you think their win total is now with those two defenders on the team?
9-5.
9-7.
Did you guys look?
No.
9-7, a full game with those
What?
two.
Wow.
I wouldn't have guessed that, but I was trying to price this right, Brinson. I'm going to take it.
I know. I had a good guess, and Wilson and Breech was just trying to steal from
Yeah.
And it worked. Sorry.
So anyway, Carlton Davis returns. I suppose it'll be for less than $16 million or thereabouts, right?
What do you mean?
He won't get J.C. Jackson money.
Yeah, no, he won't get J.C. Jackson money. That would be extremely surprising. I mean, what a 24 hours for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You think you're going to be like rebooting, and you might have to make some Hail Mary trade to get Deshaun Watson, and now all of a sudden you're got Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, back. And
I get it. I mean, obviously they're much better now than they were 24 or 48 hours ago, but I still don't. I feel like they're
still lost both your starting guards.
Yeah, they're still like the third best team in a division, a conference that's not very good. I
3
mean,
years, $45 million per Adam Schefter.
Okay, $15 million a year.
Yeah, that checks out about right. And that might be with incentives. We'll have to see. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think they're as good as they were when they won the Super Bowl
or last year.
And Jensen signed a 3-year contract. What if all these contracts just say these void when Tom Brady retires?
Then they're really going to.
We're only signing here because we want to play with Tom.
Yeah. They're the favorites to win the conference. Wow, at Caesars.
That
crazy.
Feels,
that does feel crazy.
The Rams beat them in Tampa Bay. The Packers feel like a better team.
The craziest one on there is the 49ers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
NFC title game.
That has to be baked into, like, that has to be Tom Brady stuff baked in a little bit.
Well, that's silly because
they got burnt so bad by the Tampa stuff when Tom went there originally that the books want to be careful about. You don't want to make the 49ers 15-1 and then Tom.
Or if you're the books, maybe you're assuming that Jimmy Garoppolo's there until he's not there.
Yeah. You know, or maybe you're assuming that Trey Lance is good.
Yeah.
Wait a second. If they're assuming Jimmy Garoppolo's there, it's plus $40 million. What are you talking about?
They just went to the NFC title game with Jimmy Garoppolo, Ryan. What are you talking about? They went to the Super Bowl. They've been to 2 NFC title games the past 3 years with Jimmy Garoppolo.
He went along. He was a trailer, not a truck.
Well, that's fine, but they were still there. So why would their odds be low? Plus $40 million. I would pound that.
You would not. Go ahead.
Million, I would also pound that.
He's not pounding that unless it's minus 650. Let's be honest.
Wilson mocking my
your
never lose gambling style. Did I only win $1 on my $800 bet? Sure, but it's $1 I didn't have before.
That's right. So anyway, Tehran Armstead. So a little surprising he didn't sign today, just because the interest in the offensive lineman. Like I kind of thought we would get a big deal for him out of the gate. but maybe he's sort of shopping around and wants to see his options. Maybe he wants to see where Deshaun Watson goes. Who knows? Von Miller and Chandler Jones feel like. So, by the way, usually on every Monday that this happens, there's a situation where there's like a break and a lull in the action, and then all of a sudden, it's like everything comes.
This is another way of saying we're not coming back and doing the podcast tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's going to be a bunch of stuff that happens like late.
As soon as we sign off, it's all going to happen.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Like Breech's daughter last night. I'm going to go eat some pizza in a minute. So
there's the second wave. We get the first wave right when the tampering period starts. Now we're in the wall. It's like the NCAA tournament where you have the morning games.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
like
saying.
2 games in the afternoon, and then boom, the prime time.
Because usually we do this podcast, and then there is like, I bet it'll be Tehran Armstead or Von Miller. I bet it'll be one of those top 3 guys, or one of those top 2 guys, Tehran Armstead or Von Miller, where it's a big splash free agent signing. The Von Miller one would be interesting because then if it's back to the Broncos, that would be real spicy. And Armstead, if he gets some massive deal in free agency, like it happens at like 7:00 tonight. Remember that happened with Stephon Gilmore. It happened with Revis, like Gilmore when he signed with the Patriots.
Maybe the Steelers not trade Tehran Armstead. Then I'll be willing.
I don't think we'll get the Deshaun Watson news today, but I do think we'll get. I do think we'll get another big free agent signing coming up later on Monday. Okay. Anything else we need to talk about that we missed? I think we got anything at all. Anything.
That was a fun first day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a fun first day. The Browns released Jarvis Landry.
Oh,
yeah. We didn't talk about that.
He could end up getting a pretty good contract, I think.
Like if he goes to the Chiefs or something, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Or the Patriots.
And an even bigger news that we didn't mention, the Chargers signed Dustin Hopkins to an extension.
That is huge news.
Got to get the kicker news in.
The Packers signed Devondre Campbell to a 3 years, $50 million or 3? Dang. That's a lot. Is it 3 years 50 or 3 years 30?
I think it is neither of those. I think it's 5 years 50.
I thought it was $10 million a year. I was like, that's an insane.
Use the phone calculator.
I'm reading on the rundown. 5 years, $50 million for Devondre Campbell. And
well, you read it so like kind of sure that I had written down that I was like, are my numbers wrong?
Yeah.
Brinson's phone calculator strikes again.
We'll have lots more content coming your way, of course, tomorrow. And if anything huge breaks this evening, we'll be back. In the meantime, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, give us a 5-star rating. For Breech and Wilson, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys